All right, I am here with Jimmy Wayne Garrett. What's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm good, man.
Welcome to the podcast. Here to talk a little bit about your new release and kind of what you've been up to musically and with your life and whatnot. How you been?
Dude, I've been feeling pretty good. Life's as weird as ever, So,
hmm I've been. I know nobody's been really playing shows, but have you been doing a lot of writing or anything, or what have you been up to musically?
yeah, so it's been interesting. I had this album studio, I had this album getting off the ground in January just with scheduling things for April. And, when April rolled around, everybody was like, hey, are we still doing this thing? And I said, yeah. I mean, I can't think of a reason not to. It's not like we're going to the mall to record this thing. There's going to be 5 people involved. I'm like, it's more dangerous to go to the gas station. So,
hmm
whatever, or dangerous.
Yeah.
And so we rolled forward with that. And that's been keeping me busy, man. There's a lot of work that goes into an album. And that's been keeping me busy as far as my creative energy. And as far as, the recording part is different than performing. And performing is so fun for me that I've been, getting some shows going in the past few weeks. But before that, I was enjoying going downtown Eureka and just taking it back to the street, and busking and
I was
doing
actually.
some of that.
That's one of my questions, dude. I don't know how many times I've been to Eureka Springs and ran into you playing on the street,
Dude,
just there with
it's
the
my
band.
it's my favorite spot. I play the kids and the dogs.
It's so yeah, it's awesome. Let's dive into a little bit about your musical history. Where are you from exactly?
So I was born and raised and graduated from Springdale,
Okay.
Arkansas.
Nice. When did you start playing music?
So I picked up the guitar when I was 13, and I've been kind of tinkering around on a piano before that. No formal training on the piano at all, but that was kind of the beginnings of it. There was also just a little bit before that. I've been playing. Remember that plastic flute that they would hook you up with in like 6th grade? That recorder
Mm-hmm.
thing. Did you ever play one of those? So that was kind of like an intro into reading sheet music. And I played trumpet for a couple years in band, and really just kept gravitating towards the guitar because it's super. I thought Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin was just cool. So grew up with music in church and was in the church band, and that was really interesting because it was a Southern Baptist type of church, and my guitar teacher would tell me you would be doomed to your influences. And so I was sitting up there playing what I knew how to play because what I was listening to, which was Hendrix and Led Zeppelin and Stevie Ray Vaughan and the Allman Brothers and stuff, Leonard Skinner. And they're like, can you make it a little more like country on the guitar? We're trying to call this Southern gospel or whatever. And I was like, right then I was like, man, I can only do what I can do here. Just making the best of it. And then from there, I got a couple groups going on my own outside of church and played with people. And ever since then, you know how the music scene is. I've just been trying to spit and stick it together since then.
I remember the first time I had seen you play, and we've worked together several times on booking and stuff, but
Yeah.
a lot of the times I never really get to see the bands that I work with playing. I remember seeing you guys. I had you at Riley's when I was there, and
Yeah.
and I just remember like the strongest 3-piece blues band. I remember you telling me, you're like, I'm telling you, we play like real blues, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, but around here, we hear blues, but we don't hear what you hear when you go to Beale Street and what
Yeah.
you hear when you go to kind of like the heartbeat of those places. And dude,
Yeah. Clarksdale, Mississippi and stuff like that.
really what
We're
you're
kind
kind
of more of a
of,
Texas thing too, I
yeah, it
guess,
was more,
also.
it's fat bottom end, big fat grooves on it,
Yeah.
with that mix. And it was just amazing. Is that kind of, do you still have the same kind of 3-piece that you've been rocking with, or do you have different instrumentation now?
It depends. So this latest album is country,
Mm-hmm.
and my album before that was with the 3-piece blues band. And the blues is really close to my heart, and so is storytelling. So the country and the blues thing it's really easy for me to do both. And I I mean, right now, like I said, it just depends. I'll do either. But there was a band, Liberty Bell, that was kind of like some exclusive members, and then things change and it evolved with a different name, and then it evolved some more where some people weren't playing with me anymore, and then finally the one of the many drummers that we have played with was like, quit trying to make up a band name and just, it's the Jimmy Wayne Garrett Band, and we'll just do that. And so I still got the 3-piece if you need some rock and roll. And this latest thing was inspired by Tyler Childers, man. We've been listening to him and really enjoying what he'd been doing. And I thought, well, shit, I got all these acoustic type, songs that would really benefit from a fiddle, basically, or something like a fiddle. And I should just get those out because, I mean, they're stacked up from like 2009 until last year. So, yeah, I just wanted to get those out and move forward with that. But, yeah, I still got the 3-piece, and it's a lot of fun.
To not play some form of country or not have a little bit of it in your bones living around these parts.
Yeah, don't get up there and pretend you're something else, because people can sniff that out, dude. Like I can't get up there and play punk rock, but I can tell you when people are faking punk rock and when I'm like, these dudes are punk rock for real. And I enjoy people being themselves a lot.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Whatever that is, I was raised on country, honestly, like the 90s country, like the Garth Brookses and stuff like that. That's kind of the joke at George's. If Garth Brooks does anything, Day and the crew kind of or crap for it. But when
More
you're
of a Travis Tritt fan myself.
yeah, dude, but that's the stuff I grew up on. I saw Travis Tritt when I was like 8 years old at Barnhill here, and that's there's a documentary I watched a couple months ago called Tennessee Whiskey.
Yeah.
But with Dean Dillon, who wrote all of George Strait songs. He wrote a bunch of Kenny Chesney's songs. He wrote Tennessee Whiskey. And he's like this old school country kind of hippie dude. And he just had written all these amazing country songs that we all like kind of, raised as country music hits on the radio and stuff like that, like the good ones. And so that was kind of like a real eye-opening documentary that got me back into the country kick. And that was when like the Tyler Childers and the Colter Walls and these bands are really starting to come up, the Sturgill Simpsons. What do you think about this kind of country movement? It's not an outlaw thing but it's kind of similar in the shape that it's its own thing. That's more of a more organic style of country that's more from the heart and less filtered through, I guess you would say, of like industry filters. It's kind of more and honest.
So what I think about it is, oh man, I'm a huge Sturgill fan for sure. And I think it's good and I enjoy it, but I'm just gonna to speculate on how it is kind of getting pushed to the front, is that a lot of our information and food, even for the past, let's just throw out a number, 20 years, it's more and more processed, and people are trying to really do a lot of thinking for other people and saying, oh, the market's really going to like this, and we should try and do this thing, instead of really just exposing the humanness that we all have, like our true genius, like our true spirit. And I think that once people started to get fed up with that processed diet of music, and we're getting sick of it with the food too, it's like, it just, once you eat the real food or you hear the real music, you're like, wait a minute, we've gotten off track. And then you get back to the storytelling aspect of it. And I think that that's what those guys do. They're not out there telling somebody else's story, they're telling their story. And Tyler Childers was out there singing songs that people from Lawrence County, Kentucky really relate to, because he's writing from his heart, And I think it's the best thing. It gives me a lot of what does it give me? It just gives me a lot of hope to know that that stuff's going on. You know, some dude like Sturgill can be working for the railroad, and his wife's like, so are you going to get off your ass and like do this thing, or are you just going to keep working for the railroad?
Yeah.
And he jumps out there and gets a loan from the bank and works his ass off just like he does at his job. And then he pretends like music's the job. And that's kind of what I do, man. I got in trouble in Fayetteville a few years ago with selling pot. And, you know, I was working for Joe Fennell at Jose's, and I decided I was going to quit my job and really just do music. And he came in, and he'd known me for years. And he was like, hey, man, I heard you quitting. What are you going to do? I said, bro, I'm going to play music. He goes, no, like, how are you going to pay your bills? And I said, Joe, I can't pay my fucking bills working for you. And he laughed. And I've just been thinking ever since then at that moment, it's like, well, you know, if I'm going to be broke, I might as well be broke doing something that I really enjoy. And then the shitty days aren't as shitty. So it's been good. And I think that movement that's been happening is people just getting back to doing what they love. And it shows, you know. It can transcend genres. You know, you can get people who aren't necessarily country fans going, wait a minute, this Sturgill guy's, you know, this is a real thing here, you know. I think it's real cool. So
I think that type of energy and that type of mindset, I think a lot of artists kind of jumped into that pool a little bit with this pandemic, you know, with shows getting taken away. You know, we're all musicians. We couldn't work. So,
yeah,
you know, we see like, we see so many people starting their own businesses and kind of
yeah,
pivoting and making things, and, you know, like resin art, you know, stuff like that what Sky's doing, you know, and
right.
pivoting and finding that they're putting their creativity to work maybe down a different lane and getting a little bit of success off of that. And hopefully it builds a lot of side work for a lot of musicians to be able to do music full time. Like if you have a trade you can do, you know, like,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have so many jobs, quote unquote, because I keep music as my priority. But then to make everything work, I just kind of do freelance everything. And, you know, in the past 3 months, I have harvested sweet potatoes for people in Eureka that are farmers, and I've helped slaughter some sheep, and I've built some decks, and I've did some clearing of land and burning some trees, and just, you know, the versatility makes it to where this album wouldn't have happened if I had a real job, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, if I wouldn't have been able to focus on getting the album done, I wouldn't have been able to, you know, if I wasn't freelance, I wouldn't be able to do it. Can you ring that bell? Ring it. Ring it. Push that shit. Push it. Boom.
nice. So we got things, well, those chunks of times get broken up a little bit so you're able to do that. That's kind of how I always built my career, with playing on the weekends, is try and build out around that weekend until you're eventually able to do shows. I'm in the same boat, dude. During the pandemic, I was delivering for a liquor company. At one point I was helping manage a barber shop. I did a bunch of weird, like, stuff I've never done before. But I think if
Right.
you have that mindset, like what you're talking about though, where you're going to pivot and you're just going to keep looking forward and try and be solution based, I think that's about all you can do to stay afloat.
Yeah, I think with our technologies and with the virus, it's really put on the forefront that people have forgotten one of the main keys to survival is being able to quickly adapt to change. And I think that our generation, man, if you're not adaptable, it's going to be a real tough road for you. You know, like, we can't do what our parents did, or maybe are still doing, working and doing, you know, 5 to 10 years at a place, and then maybe moving on, or maybe just staying somewhere. Like, my grandma worked at George's on Bacchus Street in Springdale for 30 years. Nobody does anything for 30 years anymore, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So adaptability is so crucial. Yeah.
Especially with everything moving so quick.
Totally.
So, well, where'd you record this album at?
So we went to Nashville. It all came about because I wanted to do a more acoustic feel And then I was thinking along those lines. My friend Rebecca and Melissa of the Buffalo Gals and Sad Daddy also.
Mhm.
They are kind of some Eureka
Super
folks.
amazing.
And I'm like, they would be a super sweet backup band. And they just happen to be living in Nashville.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm like,
Yeah, they
fuck,
are.
I guess I'm going to Nashville. And so I called them up and they said, yeah, we're down. And I was like, cool. Well, tell me where we can go and do this, where we can do it live. I'm a real big fan of live recordings where you're all there together and making it work,
Mhm.
And so they said, here's the guy, Andrea Tokic at the bomb shelter in Nashville.
Amazing.
And he's all analog, dude. Everything's analog. He doesn't have a single onboard effect or any, like he has nothing that's on board a computer. Everything is over here, and she's turning dials, and I'm like, what does that one do? And he's like, oh, it just lets a little more air in the room, makes you feel different. I'm like, shut up. I'm like, that's not even true. But he's got his old school equipment, man. And it was just a perfect vibe over there. And he's just like me or you, man. He is such a adaptive, hustling guy. Like, this place was a rundown house that he has turned into a studio with his own two hands and his own table saws. And he is just a hardworking dude. And it just put more blue collar on the thing, And then we went back on July. So that was in April. And we went back in July and did my girlfriend sang some backing vocals, and I hired 3 more singers because I needed some backup vocals on Big Money. One of these songs got a little more soul and a little more funk to it. And I was kind of describing to the Buffalo Gals, Rebecca and Melissa, what I wanted done, because they were doing a lot of backup vocals for me. And, they were just, them and Andrea were like, hey, you don't want 2 white girls going ooh and ah right there. Like, you got to hire somebody else, And it was so funny because in the studio world, there was no racial tension or racial negativity around saying something like, oh, bro, right here, you need 2 black girls singing some oohs and ahs, because their value is what it is. It's not conflated by like all these politically correct things, I mean, so it was a really interesting juxtaposition to be in the music world and being like, yo, call Nikki. We need Nikki and those 2 other girls in here, Maureen and Kishana. And they came in July and just crushed it. And then a little diamond what do they say? Canary in the coal mine? I don't know how they say it, but I need harmonica and dobro. And I ended up getting to work with this guy named Jim Hoke, who lives in Nashville and has worked with Paul McCartney, John Legend, Travis Tritt, Dolly Parton, Greg Allman. Like, the list is so comprehensive and genre transcending. I'm like, this guy's going to have just the right sauce. And sure enough, man, he plays harmonica, and then he says, yo, that one Backroads is really begging for dobro. I'll do it for $50.
What?
I was like, I could do it, Like, he had so much fun, I guess. And he just sent the files from his bedroom. And so then, boom, we had all the tracks. And I brought it back to East Hall in Fayetteville, where I had recorded a demo of all of the songs a year before. And Chris at East Hall was like, bro, this is really, it's feeling like an album, man. You got to do something about this. And so I finally emailed all those tracks to him. I said, look, I'm sorry I had to go to Nashville to make this happen, but I'm going to bring it back to you so you can like master it and kind of see what we've done. And he was stoked, man. And we actually used 2 songs, California Dust and Do the Math, are the 2 songs that we used from the demo tape that I'd done in 2018 with Chris. And they made the album, and it's just been that's how it all came together. And the artwork was from this dude, Landon Fracker. And I just kind of let everybody put their own ownership. It was also part of my thinking that I wanted people to own what they were doing. Like, if I'm not a good painter, I'm not going to try and paint my house. I'm going to hire somebody with the tools. Bro, then climb up. Instead of trying to do things I don't know how to do,
Mm-hmm.
I'll hire people who do know how to do it. And that was refreshing to kind of take a lot of responsibility off of myself to do things that I don't know
Kudos to you on
what
that.
I'm doing.
People can't do that. A lot of people.
No. And it doesn't
Hire
support
a
the
pro.
community, right? I'm not going to do my own podcast right now because you're doing a podcast. Like I'm trying to really open my mind to using the community that we have of artists and creators to make this thing work, because man, I'm trying to squeeze and make some lemonade, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
that's what it is. Well, dude, thank you for coming on, hanging out for a little bit and kind of talking about this album. You answered the crap
totally.
out of that question there on the making of the album. That's awesome, dude. That's cool. Got the
Yeah.
who all you got to play on it and stuff, dude. That's amazing.
It's just been a magical journey, and it's been a lot of learning and a lot of flowing, making it work, you know?
Where can people go online to hear your music?
So they can basically go to any of the major streaming platforms, you know, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, or
You're right.
whatever Google has. And
Mhm.
YouTube has a topic of Jimmy Wayne Garrett that has the album there. And yeah, you can listen to it on all those things. And I don't have my store set up on my website, but at jimmywaynegarrett.com or jimmywaynegarrett@gmail.com, you can hit me up and I can mail you a physical copy of the thing. And I don't have social media. I deleted that trash, and I'm just trying to rely on the other airwaves, man.
Dude, if it was 6 months ago, it would have been a different thing you just now said. But I think now, I mean, everything is flooded anyway. I've talked to 2 different artists today that are releasing albums that are afraid to release them because of the stream. I told them it's like sticking your finger in a ceiling fan. It's like it just gets blocked out by what's going on with the politics and with the pandemic and stuff right now. So it's a little tough. But
Yeah.
I think, I've been a component of things. I like the things like Patreon where, people are doing like subscription base and people are like kind of writing music and behind the scenes and talking about stuff. It's going to be interesting to see where music goes. I don't know if it's all going to be on social media like it was before. It may still, that's an interesting one. So.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be, I want to say 2 more things. I'm not trying to be on the cutting edge of technology.
Yeah.
Because I think that our minds are not developed enough to even handle the amount of technology that we have. Good jump, bro. And so I'm trying to slow things down a little bit, and in doing that, I got to get off of social media, because the one thing I want to say is my main thinking was social media is really geared towards getting a hold of your eyes and your dopamine response. And I just think that music needs to go deeper than that. Like, music is supposed to get down into your heart. And so I don't care about getting people's eyeballs. And the other thing that I got to say about social media is that people were telling me back in December when I got off of it that, well, how are you going to promote your stuff? And I said to them, if you think that their business platform's goal is to help you out, you are really misinformed, because they don't care about you getting your stuff out there. They don't care about any of that stuff. So that was part of my exit strategy, was realizing that the algorithms are not helping. They're not making more people be at my shows, and they're not helping me get albums sold. So
these are for
game.
DIY artists, man. You're speaking truth. It's kind of tough for a lot of artists to do that. I'm not saying that getting off social media is 100% the answer, but it's definitely not the answer to be on it 100%. It doesn't guarantee people to your shows. I think it goes back to hustle, man. It's getting the music out, what you're doing, playing on the streets, letting people hear what you're doing, and then telling them where you're playing, word of mouth. That old school,
Straight up.
that real deal, old school you know, we're at the age that me and you are. We're from the old school, from before cell phones, and then we remember what life was like after cell phones came back. So I remember
Totally.
still handing out flyers at the University of Arkansas, like hundreds of them, just to tell them a show's coming. And that's,
Right.
and now that's
And
like,
even if you don't get your information out there to, like, let's say 500,000 people, you maybe only get it out there to 150 people, but those relationships are going to be much stronger and they're going to be more meaningful than that 500,000 that don't give a shit, you know?
absolutely. Well, dude, well,
They
thanks
just don't
for coming on here.
scroll up. So anyways, yeah, dude, thank you for taking time, man. I really appreciate the podcast world, and I really appreciate everything that you do for the music scene around Northwest Arkansas, man.
Thanks, man. Just trying to help shine a light on it. We got a bunch of talented people around here, and I think the world of everybody. So it's for me to have a job where all I do is try to get everybody to know about it is awesome.
Yeah, dude, I couldn't agree more.
So, all right, man. Well, I'll talk to you soon, and good luck with everything. And we'll talk soon, man.
Definitely, man. Appreciate it, Travis.
Later, buddy.